Hey, Allison Verhalen with AV Writing Services here, and today I am talking about content marketing for B2B audiences. So the first thing you need to know about the difference between a B2B audience versus a B2C audience when it comes to content marketing is that the B2B audience in general, this is not always true, but in general, the B2B audience is much more driven by numbers, percentages, facts, statistics, results. They want to get results, right? They're buying something for their business. They want something in return for that investment. It's considered a business investment. So what are you getting for them? What are they getting for that investment? Can you prove that they're going to get a certain ROI for that investment? So if you do happen to know what your ROI is, which you should for whatever you're selling to a B2B audience, that should absolutely be front and center in your content. It should go in the headline because that's going to get you more clicks, and it should be at the top of your content once they find your content, whether it's on your website, on social media, wherever it happens to be. Put that ROI number front and center. The B2C audience in general tends to be much more emotionally driven. The B2C audience, remember, has like an ideal vision of themselves, of who they think they are. Doesn't always line up with who they are in reality, but what you want to target is that ideal version of themselves and tie that into your product for a B2C audience. Tell them if you buy such and such, they'll look a certain way, they'll feel a certain way, it will help them act a certain way, it will help them somehow to be their ideal version of themselves. So that's what you need to target. So B2C audience in general is much more emotionally driven, and B2B audience is much more driven by the facts, the numbers, the statistics. They gotta get that ROI. That's what they're really striving for. Second off is personas. In general, for a B2B audience, one persona should be enough. You should have, obviously you're targeting businesses, but what kind of business? You need to know the kind of industry that they're in, how large the business is, how many employees do they have, how much revenue do they bring in every month, every quarter, every year, whatever it is. You need to know what that target is so you know who you're targeting. And you need to know where your audience is in the corporate ladder, so to speak. If they're in a big corporation, are they way at the top? Are they like the CFO or the CMO? Or are they in IT? Or are they just like an office manager buying office products? Whatever it is you're selling, they're going to be somewhere on that ladder. So you need to know where they are on that ladder. And you need to know if there's other people making that decision. Is it one person making that decision? Or do they have a boss they have to answer to? Is it a whole team making the decision? In B2C, in general, you're just going to have one person making that decision. But in B2B, it could be one person or it could be a whole bunch of people. So that means that when you're pitching, you might have to make your pitch to multiple people. And it means that your content has to persuade a whole bunch of people, not just your entire audience. Obviously, you want it to be persuasive to a large number of people who fit into your audience, but it also has to persuade a number of people throughout an organization. You might have to persuade the office manager and her boss or his boss. So consider all the levels. It's not just one person that you're talking to in B2B. It's usually a team of people that you're talking to, or like I said, a multi-level team in an organization. So that's who you need to target. Whereas B2C, it's generally just one person. But because B2C is one person, you're generally going to have more personas in a B2C content marketing strategy so that you can cover all of your bases. If you have, related products or services that you can provide to different people in the B2C space, then you're going to want to try to target all of them. Finally, there's building relationships, and that I think is even more important in B2B than it is in B2C. And I'm actually gonna skip a little bit to thought leadership, because people want to know that you know what you're talking about. And that's only gonna happen by you consistently creating content and reaching out to people, reaching out to influencers, building those content partnerships, guest posting on their blog, having them guest post on your blog, cross-promoting, sharing their content, asking them to share your content. There's a lot of back and forth that happens in B2B, and that will help you build relationships, but it will also help improve your thought leadership in whatever niche it is you're working in. So you need that thought leadership, but also the relationships. Relationships in B2C generally are not as important. There are always exceptions because people do want to feel connected to a brand, even if they're just buying clothing or jewelry or makeup from that brand. They want to know that they can trust that brand. So don't ignore relationships if you're in B2C, but I think they're much more important in B2B in general. As far as content marketing channels, obviously social media is huge for, I'd say both, honestly. It's huge particularly for B2C. It's going to depend on where your audience is hanging out. B2C, I think you're going to have more luck reaching that audience on places like Twitter, Snapchat. Again, it depends on who you're targeting, what age group they're in, where they tend to hang out online. Generally, older groups tend to hang out on Facebook and Instagram, and younger people are on Snapchat, and now there's TikTok, and so there's a very young generation on that. So find out who you're targeting and where they're spending time online. Obviously, for a B2B audience, LinkedIn is huge. For B2B, I would say absolutely do not forget about LinkedIn and make that part of your strategy, but don't focus on it solely because you're B2B and you're only targeting businesses. Remember that there are people who are making that decision, that buying decision. It's not like a business is putting in some algorithm and using that to decide to buy your product. Remember that relationships are really important when it comes to B2B. So those people, yes, they're on LinkedIn. They're also probably on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So go to those places, reach out to them on those social media channels, build that relationship, and then say, hey, by the way, I happen to have this awesome product that I think could really help you in your business. So build those relationships and don't limit it just to LinkedIn. Consider where else your audience is hanging out online. Where are they talking about their personal lives? Where are you talking about your personal life? You should absolutely be talking about your personal life. Obviously, don't give away all your secrets, but talk about if you have pets, if you have kids, if you're going on vacation. All that kind of stuff is stuff that you can talk about that can give you more of a human connection and help you build those relationships with your audience. When it comes to types of content for a B2B audience, generally they want long form content, they want white papers, they want how-to guides, they want those really long blog posts. My most recent blog post, I want to say, is somewhere around 2,500 words. I put a lot of work into it and a lot of data and a lot of research telling people everything that they need to know about B2B content marketing. So they also want ebooks. A lot of them are reading books and they're shopping Amazon, trying to figure out how they can educate themselves about their own business. So if you can create that content, push it in front of them, that will position you as a thought leader in your industry. By contrast, B2C, again, types of content, you want to be on your website regardless of whether you're in B2B or B2C. Everyone should come back to your website ideally, but for a B2C audience in general, they want shorter content, they want snappy, they want to get in, get out, get on with their day. So shorter content that's snappy and engaging and attractive is much more likely to attract and engage and convert a B2C audience than a B2B audience. Whereas a B2B audience is they're gonna want to do their research, make sure you really know what you're talking about, and before they decide to make that purchasing decision. So that's it for that. Now, all that being said, is the whole B2B versus B2C controversy, is it much ado about nothing? I think that it is, because all of this depends on what the person is buying. Let's say, I think for a standard B2C audience, I would say something like if they're going to buy a pair of earrings, you can put an ad out on Instagram and target a certain population on Instagram and push out that ad. And if it's a cheap pair of costume earrings, then they're much more likely to click that buy button right off the bat without getting to know you, without knowing who you are or caring, because they're only spending a few bucks and they're gonna get something that they like out of it, but it's not it's not really impactful and they're not looking to get a certain ROI out of it. But on the flip side, you have, let's say you're selling houses or you're selling cars or you're an attorney who works in family law. All of those, you're targeting the B2C space. But those people are going to invest a lot of money into what you are selling them. If they're buying a house or a car, they're going to spend months, if not years, paying that off, sometimes decades paying that off when it comes to their building. So they're going to want to know that it's reliable, it's going to get them what they need, it's something that they can use for a long time, it's going to be worth that investment. So when it comes to those kinds of content, anytime you have something that they're buying for the long term, you're going to want to treat it like a B2B audience. You're going to want to build that authority and build that trust. Really build that trust so that when they are ready to buy a house or a car, they'll come to you because they know you'll do right by them. Next up is educating the B2B audience. Most of the time, the B2B audience wants something educational and they want, like I said, how-tos, they want lists, they want to know how to do it themselves. So you have to provide value. By all means, do not give away all of your secrets. This is not just you telling everyone how to do your job so that they don't have to hire you. You absolutely want them to hire you or to buy your product. But why should they buy your product? How can they best use your product? That's where your how-to content and your guides come in, and that really matters for a B2B audience. B2C audience, not so much. B2C audience you can use, for example, consumer-created content. People taking selfies with their product, for example, and posting it to social media. That's consumer-created content, and that is really powerful for a B2C audience. In general, it's not as powerful for a B2B audience. The exception to that being, I would say, is testimonials. If you're in the B2B space or the B2C space, always, always, always get testimonials, put them everywhere, put them on social media, put them on your website, put them in your newsletters, put them everywhere, because those are super valuable. People want to see, again, they want to see proof that you can do what you say you can do. And if you can talk yourself up, that's great, and you should talk yourself up, but they're always going to take that with a grain of salt, knowing that you're trying to sell them something. Whereas if they can see those results from someone in their position, from another business owner, another office manager, another whatever, and they can see that that person got results from your product or service, they're going to be much more likely to buy from you. So always, always, always use testimonials. And then, it's educational. B2B content has to be educational. Does that mean it has to be boring? Absolutely not. Remember that, again, it's people behind these businesses. People are making these purchasing decisions. If you put the people to sleep, they're not going to buy from you. So your content has to be engaging. I have seen everything from Star Wars related content in the B2B space to people talking about Game of Thrones and how it relates to their B2B business. Get creative. Again, know your audience, not just in terms of what they do for business and where they are in that ladder, but know what they do personally. What are they interested in? What are they doing in their off hours when they're not at work? If you can use that information to hook them and grab them in and get them interested in your content and then keep them engaged all the way through to get to that call to action, you're going to be much more likely to convert them and make a sale. So, and again, remember, boring is relative. I was reading a book on content strategy a few months ago, and my brother asked what I was reading, and I told him, and he was like, that sounds incredibly boring. But I was genuinely fascinated by this book, like fascinated, not just like, oh yeah, that's cool, but I completely absorbed this book in a few days. It wasn't very long. I breezed through it. I got so much information out of it. It was not boring to me at all, but someone who is not working in the content marketing space would probably find it pretty boring. So again, it's all about your audience. What are they interested in? What's going to hook them in and really keep them reading all the way to that call to action? So all that being said, how do you come up with a great B2B content marketing strategy? First, you need to know your audience. Where are they hanging out? what kinds of content do they want? What are they looking to buy? How are they looking to buy it? Are they searching specific terms? If so, what are they searching? Are they hanging out on social media? Are they looking to connect with influencers in that space? You need to know all of this before you can get to step number 2, which is creating content. And there are 3 main tips that I recommend people use to create great content. And the first one is, what's trending in your industry? What are people talking about? What are people asking about? And second is keyword research. You want to make sure trending topics are great, but sometimes the market is flooded with content about that. And if you create content about that, it'll just be more white noise. You'll just get lost in the noise. No one's going to find you. So what you need to do is do that keyword research to find those keywords, those long key phrases in particular that are getting searched. You want a high search volume and a relatively low competition rate, so that A, it's something that people are actually searching for, and B, you actually have a chance at ranking for it. So do that keyword research. And finally, ask your audience. Just straight up ask them. If you catch a client on the phone, just say, hey, real quick, is there anything any kind of content, any kind of course, anything in this industry that you're looking for that you're not getting? They will go on and on. People love talking about that stuff. They really do. They want to know that you care about what they want and what they're not getting. So if you can provide that for them, it'll be golden. You'll have a much easier time marketing it, because you'll know that there is a market and there's a gap for that kind of content. And then distribute it. Obviously, it should be SEO friendly. The B2B audience tends to do a lot of research. On average, they tend to read, I think, 5 to 7 pieces of content on a website before making a purchasing decision. So you got to have the blog, and it has to be optimized. Use keywords, use them everywhere in your content. Don't keyword stuff, but make sure it's relevant. All the SEO tricks that you use, meta tags, categories, length, all that stuff. Use it all to make sure that you show up in Google searches, and then distribute it on social media. And again, that goes back to knowing where your audience is. Absolutely distribute it on LinkedIn, but also figure out, is your audience on Facebook? Are they spending a lot of time on Instagram? Where are they spending time? Because that's where you want to target, and that's where you want to distribute your content. And that is it for me. Again, I am Allison Verhalen with AV Writing Services. If you need any help creating content, whether it's for a B2B or a B2C audience, we are happy to help. We can do that keyword research for you. We can write the content for you. We can help identify your target audience and where they're hanging out online, and tell you where you should be hanging out online. So again, reach out. We are at info@avwritingservices.com. That is A as in Apple and V as in Victory, writingservices.com. That is it for me for the week. Have a great week and happy marketing.